The vista from Inspiration Point was breathtaking, a panorama of jagged peaks and emerald valleys stretching as far as the eye could see. Most tourists clustered near the designated viewing platform, snapping photos with respectful murmurs, but not Karen. Karen was on a mission. Her beige bucket hat, perched precariously on her head, bobbed with determination as she surveyed the scene, her lips pursed in a silent calculation. Karen, you see, wasn't just any tourist. She was a connoisseur of the perfect snapshot, a self-proclaimed Instagram influencer in the making. The official viewing platform? Far too pedestrian. The likes wouldn't exactly pour in. She needed something more. Something daring. Something that screamed, "I lived!" And she was pretty sure it was just past that flimsy-looking chain-link fence. The fence, of course, wasn't flimsy. It was reinforced steel, anchored deep into the rocky soil. Attached to it, at regular intervals, were bright orange signs emblazoned with skull and crossbones and warnings in multiple languages. Danger, unstable ground, sheer drop, stay behind barrier. They were hard to miss. Yet, Karen seemed to possess an almost supernatural ability to filter out anything that didn't align with her vision. She was a study in oblivious entitlement. Earlier, she'd cut in line at the coffee shop, demanding a double shot, extra foam, soy latte with the imperious air of a queen addressing her subjects. She'd complained loudly about the unacceptable lack of cell service, even though the park's website clearly stated that coverage was spotty. And now she was eyeing the forbidden zone with a glint of rebellious excitement in her eyes. The other tourists, a mix of families, hikers, and international travelers, were mostly keeping their distance. A young couple, hand in hand, pointed out a soaring hawk circling overhead. A group of German backpackers consulted a trail map, their voices hushed with anticipation. Even the children seemed to understand the inherent risks of the steep cliffs. Except, apparently, Karen. She adjusted her oversized sunglasses. Shield against any potential naysayers, she tugged at her floral print blouse, striking a pose in her mind. She needed that perfect angle, that shot that would make her followers swoon with envy. The view from behind the barrier promised an unobstructed vista, a dizzying perspective that would set her apart from the hordes of ordinary tourists. A lone park ranger, a weathered man with eyes that had seen it all, leaned against a nearby picnic table, observing the crowd that he'd seen countless Karens in. His years of service, the ones who thought the rules were merely suggestions, the ones who prioritized selfies over safety, he sighed inwardly. Knowing what was likely to come, he'd already issued a verbal warning to Karen earlier, advising her to stay behind the designated areas. She'd simply waved him off with a dismissive flick of her wrist. The ranger knew this overlook like the back of his hand. He knew the shifting shale, the unpredictable winds, the hidden crevices that could swallow a careless tourist whole. He also knew that sometimes a gentle reminder wasn't enough. Sometimes a more persuasive approach was required. He straightened up, his gaze fixed on Karen, a silent promise hanging in the air. The stage was set. The sheer number of warnings should have deterred anyone with even a shred of common sense. Besides the prominent signs bolted to the fence, smaller, brightly colored flags fluttered in the breeze, each bearing a universal symbol of danger. A stick figure tumbling headfirst into a chasm. Even the very air seemed to hum with a subtle warning, a low, mournful whistle carried on the wind that spoke of the unforgiving landscape. Yet, Karen remained undeterred. It wasn't just that she ignored the warnings. She actively dismissed them, reinterpreting them to fit her own narrative. In her mind, the signs weren't meant for her. They were for the clumsy, the unadventurous, the ones who lacked the vision to see the true beauty that lay just beyond the prescribed boundaries. She was different. She was special. A young boy, no older than 7, tugged at his mother's sleeve, pointing at one of the signs. "Mommy, what does that mean?" he asked, his voice filled with innocent curiosity. "It means we have to stay behind the fence, sweetie," his mother replied, her tone firm but gentle. "It's dangerous over there. The ground is slippery, and it's a long way down." Karen overheard the exchange and scoffed inwardly. Slippery ground? Please, she was wearing sensible hiking boots. Well, sensible for Instagram anyway. They were a fashionable shade of tan and had chunky soles that looked rugged but were mostly for show. Earlier, as she approached the overlook, she'd overheard a group of hikers discussing the recent rock slides in the area. They say a section of the cliff face collapsed just last week. One of them had said, his voice grave. Lucky no one was near it. Karen had simply rolled her eyes. Rock slides? How dramatic. Probably just a few pebbles. Besides, a little bit of danger only added to the thrill, didn't it? Even the ranger, the one who was now watching her with unnerving intensity, had tried to reason with her. He'd approached her with a weary smile and a voice that suggested he'd had this conversation 1,000 times before. "Ma'am," he'd said, "I understand you want to get a good picture, but that area is closed for a reason. It's extremely unstable, and we've had several incidents recently." Karen had responded with a practiced air of condescension. "Oh, I'll be careful," she'd said, her voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. "I'm very experienced with photography." She'd emphasized the word photography, as if it were some kind of extreme sport. "I know what I'm doing." The ranger, clearly unconvinced, had simply sighed and retreated, muttering something about paperwork and idiot tourists. But Karen didn't care. She was on a mission, and nothing, not common sense, not warning signs, not even the stern gaze of a seasoned park ranger was going to stop her from achieving her goal. The perfect picture awaited, and Karen was determined to claim it, regardless of the consequences. The digital world demanded it, and Karen, ever the dutiful servant of social media, was ready to deliver. The only question was, how would she get past the barrier? She began subtly scouting for the weakest point, a gap in the fence, a low spot she could easily step over. She was convinced she could find one, if she just looked hard enough. Finding what she considered a suitable breach point, a slightly lower section of the fence where the ground dipped, Karen glanced around. Ensuring the ranger wasn't directly watching, he was still there, leaning against the picnic table, but his attention seemed momentarily diverted by a group of noisy teenagers. This was her chance. "Okay, Karen," she muttered to herself. "Time to work your magic." She took a deep breath, adjusted her bucket hat, and carefully stepped over the bottom wire of the fence. It was surprisingly easy, which only reinforced her belief that the warnings were exaggerated. "See?" she thought triumphantly. "Nothing to it." As soon as her feet touched the ground on the other side, however, she felt a subtle shift. The soil wasn't firm and packed like it appeared from a distance. It was loose and gravelly, shifting under her weight with each step. A small cascade of pebbles tumbled down the slope, disappearing into the chasm below. Karen's initial confidence wavered slightly, but she pressed on. "Just a little further," she told herself, her eyes fixed on a particularly picturesque rock formation that jutted out over the valley. "That's where the magic happens." She imagined the photo, her silhouetted against the dramatic backdrop, the wind gently tousling her hair, the sun setting in a blaze of glory. It would be epic. It would be iconic. With each step, the terrain became more treacherous. Patches of dry, brittle grass offered little support, and the ground sloped downwards at an increasingly steep angle. She had to concentrate to maintain her balance, her arms outstretched like a tightrope walker. The wind picked up, whipping her hair across her face, and making it difficult to see. A wave of unease washed over her. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all. Maybe the warnings were there for a reason. But the thought of turning back, of admitting defeat, was unbearable. She had come this far. She couldn't give up now. Besides, she was almost there. Suddenly, her foot slipped on a patch of loose gravel. She gasped, her arms flailing wildly as she struggled to regain her balance. For a terrifying moment, she felt herself teetering on the edge, the vast emptiness of the valley yawning beneath her. She managed to right herself, but her heart was pounding in her chest, and her legs were shaking. "Okay, deep breaths," she told herself, trying to regain her composure. "Just a little further." She took another tentative step, and then another. She was almost at the rock formation now, close enough to reach out and touch it. Just as she raised her camera, ready to capture the perfect shot, she heard a voice behind her. "Ma'am," the voice said, calm but firm, "I'm going to have to ask you to come back over the fence now." It was the ranger that he had moved with surprising speed and was now standing just a few feet away. His expression unreadable. Karen felt a surge of anger and frustration. He was ruining everything. But she also knew, deep down, that she was in trouble, and that perfect picture, it suddenly seemed a lot less important. The ranger, whose name was Dale, wasn't particularly imposing in stature. He was of average height and build. His uniform slightly rumpled, suggesting a long day on the job. But there was something about his demeanor, a quiet confidence and an unwavering gaze, that commanded respect. He'd been a park ranger for over 20 years, and in that time, he'd seen it all, from careless hikers wandering off trail to overconfident climbers attempting feats beyond their skill level. He'd rescued lost children, tended to injured animals, and mediated countless disputes between tourists. He knew this park, and he knew people. He'd started his career fresh out of college, full of idealistic notions about preserving nature and educating the public. Over time, the idealism had been tempered by a healthy dose of realism. He'd learned that some people simply couldn't be reasoned with, that some were so blinded by their own self-importance that they were willing to risk their lives, and the lives of others, for a fleeting moment of glory. Dale wasn't a man of many words. He preferred action over lectures, and he had a knack for assessing situations quickly and decisively. He'd been watching Karen ever since she arrived at Inspiration Point, and he'd known, with a sinking feeling, that it was only a matter of time before she did something foolish. He tried to warn her, but his words had clearly fallen on deaf ears. He'd seen the way she'd dismissed the warning signs, the way she'd scoffed at the concerns of other tourists. He'd seen the glint of determination in her eyes, the unwavering focus on getting that perfect picture, no matter the cost, and he knew that he couldn't let her continue down that path. Years of experience had taught him that the key to dealing with situations like this was to remain calm and in control. Panic was contagious, and any sign of hesitation or uncertainty could escalate the situation. He needed to project an air of authority, to make it clear that he was in charge. As he approached Karen, he carefully scanned the terrain, assessing the risks. The ground was unstable, the wind was strong, and the drop-off was sheer. One wrong move could have disastrous consequences. He needed to act quickly and decisively, but he also needed to be careful. He'd already radioed for backup, but he knew it would be several minutes before anyone arrived. In the meantime, it was up to him to ensure Karen's safety, and the safety of everyone else at Inspiration Point. He took a deep breath, steeled his nerves, and prepared to execute his plan. He had a feeling this was going to be one of those days. He just hoped he could get through it without anyone getting hurt. Karen, oblivious to Dale's internal calculations and impending intervention, remained fixated on the rock formation. It was now or never. The sun was dipping lower, casting long shadows across the valley, and the light was perfect. She raised her camera, framing the shot with meticulous precision. She adjusted the settings, fiddling with the aperture and ISO until she achieved the desired effect. She wanted a dramatic, almost ethereal look, something that would capture the raw beauty of the landscape and the inherent danger of her location. She took a test shot, reviewed it quickly, and made a few minor adjustments. The wind continued to buffet her, making it difficult to hold the camera steady. She gripped it tightly, her knuckles white. She leaned slightly forward, edging closer to the precipice, trying to get a better angle. She was so focused on the viewfinder that she completely lost track of her surroundings. She didn't notice the loose rock beneath her feet until it was too late. It shifted suddenly, sending a small avalanche of gravel cascading down the slope. She gasped, her arms flailing as she struggled to regain her balance. The camera slipped from her grasp and tumbled towards the edge. "No!" she cried out, instinctively reaching for it. She lunged forward, her fingers brushing against the camera strap, but it was too late. The camera disappeared over the edge, plummeting into the abyss below. For a moment, Karen stood frozen, her mind reeling. Her camera was gone. Her perfect shot was gone, and she was stranded on a precarious ledge, with a sheer drop on one side and a stern-faced park ranger approaching on the other. A wave of panic washed over her. She was trapped. She couldn't go forward, and she couldn't go back. She was completely and utterly stuck. Tears welled up in her eyes. She was no longer the confident, adventurous Instagram influencer. She was just Karen, a frightened tourist who had made a terrible mistake. She looked at Dale, her eyes pleading for help. I don't know what to do," she stammered, her voice trembling. Dale stopped a few feet away, his expression softening slightly. He could see the fear in her eyes, the genuine regret on her face. He knew that she had learned her lesson, albeit the hard way. "Just stay calm," he said, his voice reassuring. I'm going to help you get back over the fence. Just do exactly what I say, and we'll be fine. He carefully assessed the situation, looking for the safest way to approach her. He noticed that she was wearing a backpack, a brightly colored affair covered in patches and pins. An idea sparked in his mind. It was risky, but it might just work. Okay, Karen, he said. I want you to turn around slowly and face the fence. Can you do that for me? Karen hesitated for a moment, then slowly turned around, her eyes fixed on Dale. She was trembling uncontrollably, but she managed to follow his instructions. Good, Dale said. Now I'm going to come a little closer. Just stay still and don't move. He took a few tentative steps forward, closing the distance between them. He reached out and gently grasped the straps of her backpack. Okay, Karen, he said. This might feel a little strange, but I need you to trust me. I'm going to help you get back over the fence. Are you ready? Karen nodded weakly, her eyes wide with fear. Dale took a deep breath and prepared to execute his plan. The crowd above, now fully aware of the situation, held its collective breath. Dale took a firm grip on the backpack straps, ensuring he had a secure hold. He needed to be precise. One wrong move, one moment of hesitation, and they could both be in serious trouble. Okay, Karen, he said, his voice calm and steady. On the count of 3, I'm going to give the backpack a little tug. When I do, I want you to lean back slightly and try to step over the fence. Can you do that? Karen nodded, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and trust. She had no idea what Dale was planning, but she was willing to do anything to get back to safety. 1. Dale began, taking a deep breath. 2. He tightened his grip on the straps. 3. With a swift, practiced motion, Dale gave the backpack a sharp tug, pulling Karen slightly off balance at the same time. He used his other hand to guide her towards the fence. The maneuver was surprisingly effective. The momentum, combined with Dale's guidance, helped Karen to take a tentative step backwards. For a heart-stopping moment, she teetered on the edge, her arms flailing as she struggled to maintain her balance. The crowd above gasped, their eyes fixed on the scene below. That looked like she was going to fall. But Dale was ready. He maintained a firm grip on the backpack straps. Using his weight to counter her movements, he pulled her steadily towards the fence, guiding her with gentle but firm pressure. Slowly, painstakingly, Karen managed to get one foot over the bottom wire of the fence. Then, with another surge of adrenaline, she heaved herself upwards, swinging her other leg over the barrier. She landed awkwardly on the other side, stumbling slightly, but Dale was there to catch. He steadied her with a firm hand on her arm, ensuring she didn't fall. Karen stood there for a moment, catching her breath, her legs trembling uncontrollably. She was safe. She was back on solid ground. She was alive. A collective sigh of relief swept through the crowd above. They had watched the scene unfold with bated breath, fearing the worst. Now, they erupted in cheers, applauding Dale's quick thinking and Karen's successful rescue. Dale smiled, relieved that his plan had worked. He released his grip on Karen's arm and stepped back, giving her some space. Are you okay? He asked, his voice filled with genuine concern. Karen nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes, she said, her voice trembling. Thank you. Thank you so much. She looked at Dale, her eyes filled with gratitude. She had been so foolish, so arrogant, so convinced that the rules didn't apply to her. Now, she realized how wrong she had been. She had risked her life for a fleeting moment of glory, for a picture that would have garnered a few likes on social media. It was a stupid, selfish thing to do, and she was incredibly lucky to be alive. The crowd continued to cheer, their applause echoing through the valley. They had witnessed a moment of drama and tension, a reminder of the inherent dangers of the natural world, and they had seen a park ranger, a seemingly ordinary man, perform an act of quiet heroism. But the drama wasn't quite over yet. There was still the matter of Karen's lost camera, lying somewhere at the bottom of the chasm, and there was the small matter of the lecture that Dale was about to give her. But for now, at least, everyone could breathe a sigh of relief. The crisis had been averted. The cheers from the crowd were a mixture of relief, admiration, and perhaps a touch of schadenfreude. They had witnessed a near disaster, and Dale's quick thinking had averted a potentially tragic outcome. Now, they were eager to express their gratitude and appreciation. The young woman with a baby strapped to her chest approached Dale, her eyes shining with admiration. "That was amazing," she said, her voice filled with awe. "You saved her life." Dale shrugged, embarrassed by the attention. "I was just doing my job," he said, his voice modest. "Anyone would have done the same." But the woman wasn't buying it. "No," she said, shaking her head. "You were incredible. You were so calm and collected, even when it looked like she was going to fall. That you're a hero." An older man, wearing a hiking hat and carrying a walking stick, chimed in. "That was some fancy footwork, son," he said, clapping Dale on the back. "I've been hiking these trails for 50 years, and I've never seen anything like it." A group of teenagers, the same ones who had distracted Dale earlier, approached him sheepishly. "We're sorry for causing a distraction," one of them said, his voice contrite. "We didn't realize how dangerous it was over there." Dale smiled, relieved that they had learned their lesson. "It's okay," he said. "Just be more careful in the future. And always pay attention to the warning signs." The crowd continued to shower Dale with praise and gratitude. They took pictures of him. They shook his hand. They told him stories of their own near misses on the trails. Dale was overwhelmed by the attention, but he tried to remain humble and down to earth. Meanwhile, Karen stood off to the side, still trembling, watching the scene unfold. She was a pariah, an object of scorn and ridicule. She could feel the eyes of the crowd on her, judging her, condemning her. She wanted to disappear, to vanish, into thin air. She was ashamed of her behavior, ashamed of her arrogance, ashamed of the fact that she had put herself and others in danger. She looked at Dale, surrounded by admirers, and felt a pang of guilt. He was a hero, and she was the villain. He had saved her life, and she had almost ruined his day. She knew that she owed him an apology, a sincere expression of remorse, but she couldn't bring herself to speak. The words caught in her throat, choked by shame and embarrassment. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the crowd began to disperse. The sun was setting, and it was time for everyone to head back to their cars and hotels. The drama was over, and it was time to move on. Dale approached Karen, his expression serious but compassionate. He knew that she had been through a lot, and he didn't want to rub salt in her wounds. But he also knew that he had to say something, to drive home the importance of respecting the rules and heeding the warnings. "Are you feeling any better?" he asked, his voice gentle. Karen nodded, her eyes still filled with tears. "Yes," she said softly. "Thank you." Dale sighed, knowing that the conversation was just beginning. "Karen," Dale began, his voice gentle but firm, "I need you to understand how serious this was. You put yourself in grave danger, and you risked the lives of others as well. If I hadn't been there, or if my plan hadn't worked, things could have turned out very differently." Karen nodded, her eyes fixed on the ground. "I know," she said softly. "I'm so sorry." "It's not enough to be sorry," Dale said, his voice growing sterner. "You need to learn from this. You need to understand that the rules are there for a reason. They're not just suggestions. They're designed to protect you and everyone else who visits this park." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I understand that you wanted to get a good picture," he continued, "but that's no excuse for putting yourself in harm's way. There are plenty of beautiful views in this park that you can access without breaking the rules. You just need to be willing to look for them." Karen looked up at Dale, her eyes filled with shame and remorse. "I know," she said. "I was stupid. I was selfish. I just wanted to get a picture that would impress people on Instagram. I wasn't thinking about the consequences." "That's the problem," Dale said, shaking his head. "Too many people are so focused on social media that they forget to think about the real world. They forget to think about the dangers, the risks, the consequences of their actions." He stepped closer to Karen, his voice softening slightly. "I'm not trying to lecture you," he said. "I just want you to understand that your actions have a ripple effect. They can impact other people, other places, other things. You need to be more responsible, more aware of your surroundings." He paused, giving Karen a chance to respond. "Do you understand what I'm saying?" he asked. Karen nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she said. "I understand that I'll never do anything like that again, I promise." Dale looked at her, searching for a sign of sincerity. He could see the genuine remorse in her eyes, the genuine regret on her face. He believed that she had learned her lesson. "Okay," he said, his voice softening. "I'm glad to hear that. But I also want you to do something else. I want you to tell other people about your experience. I want you to share your story with your friends, your family, your followers on social media. I want you to warn them about the dangers of ignoring the rules and taking unnecessary risks." Karen looked at Dale, surprised by his request. "You want me to tell people about this?" she asked. "But I'll look like an idiot." "Maybe," Dale said, shrugging. "But you'll also be helping other people. You'll be preventing them from making the same mistake that you made. And that's a lot more important than looking good on Instagram." He smiled, extending his hand to Karen. "What do you say?" he asked. "Are you willing to do it?" Karen hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes," she said, taking Dale's hand. "I'll do it. I'll tell everyone about what happened." Dale smiled, relieved that he had gotten through to her. He knew that she still had a long way to go, but he was confident that she was on the right path. "Good," he said. "I'm proud of you. Now, let's get you back to your car. It's getting late." He led Karen back towards the parking lot, his arm around her shoulder, offering her support and encouragement as they walked. He couldn't help but wonder if she would actually follow through on her promise. Would she actually tell her story to others? Would she actually learn from her mistake? Only time would tell. But for now, at least, he had done his best to help her. He had saved her life, and he had given her a chance to redeem herself. It was up to her to seize that opportunity and make the most of it. The walk back to the parking lot was silent, punctuated only by the crunch of gravel under their feet and the distant chirping of crickets. Karen kept her head down, avoiding eye contact with Dale and any lingering tourists. She felt like she was wearing a scarlet letter, branded for all to see as the idiot tourist who had almost fallen off a cliff as they reached her car, a beat-up sedan with a bumper sticker that read, "I love nature." Dale stopped and turned to face her. "I'm going to have to write a report about this incident," he said, his voice professional. "It's standard procedure." Karen nodded, her stomach sinking. A report meant official documentation, potential fines, maybe even a ban from the park. "I understand," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not going to recommend any serious penalties," Dale said, surprising her. "I think you've learned your lesson. But I will have to document what happened, and that will be on your record." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notepad and a pen. "Can I get your name and address?" he asked. Karen provided the information, her voice trembling. She felt like a criminal being booked for a crime. She imagined her name being added to some kind of wall of shame for reckless tourists. Dale wrote. Karen noticed a flicker of movement in the distance. A small group of people was gathered near the overlook, pointing and gesturing towards the spot where she had almost fallen. She could hear their voices, although she couldn't make out the words. She knew that they were talking about her, gossiping about her, laughing at her. The humiliation was almost unbearable. She wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. Dale finished writing and handed her a copy of the report. "Here you go," he said. "Keep this for your records. And please, be more careful in the future." Karen took the report, her fingers brushing against Dale's. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." She unlocked her car, climbed inside, and started the engine. She didn't look back as she drove away, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. She just wanted to get out of there, to escape the shame and embarrassment as she drove. She replayed the events of the day in her mind. She thought about the warning signs, the ranger's advice, the near miss on the ledge, the loss of her camera, the cheers from the crowd, the lecture from Dale. She realized that she had been incredibly foolish, incredibly arrogant, incredibly selfish. She had put herself in danger for a fleeting moment of glory, for a picture that would have garnered a few likes on social media. She had almost lost her life, and for what? For Instagram? It was absurd. She vowed to change her ways. She vowed to be more responsible, more aware of her surroundings, more respectful of the rules. She vowed to never again put herself or others in danger for the sake of a picture. She also vowed to follow through on her promise to Dale. She would tell her story to others, she would warn them about the dangers of ignoring the rules, and she would try to use her experience to make a positive impact on the world. It wouldn't be easy. She would have to face ridicule, judgment, and scorn. But she was determined to do it. She owed it to Dale, she owed it to herself, and she owed it to the world. As she drove into the sunset, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could turn this embarrassing episode into something positive. Maybe she could use her experience to inspire others to be more responsible, more aware, and more respectful of the natural world. It was a long shot, but it was worth a try. She had a story to tell, and she was ready to tell it. Weeks later, Karen sat nervously in front of her laptop, staring at the blank screen. She had been putting this off for days, but she knew she couldn't delay it any longer. She had promised Dale that she would share her story, and she intended to keep her word. She opened her Instagram account, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She had lost a significant number of followers since the incident at Inspiration Point. Many of them had left scathing comments on her photos, accusing her of being reckless, selfish, and irresponsible. She had considered deleting her account altogether, but she knew that would be the easy way out. She needed to face the consequences of her actions, to own up to her mistakes, and to use her platform to make a positive impact. She took a deep breath and began to type. She started by describing the beauty of Inspiration Point, the breathtaking views, the sense of awe and wonder that it inspired. Then, she described her own arrogance, her desire for the perfect picture, her disregard for the warning signs. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She admitted that she had been wrong, that she had been foolish, that she had put herself and others in danger. She described her near fall, the loss of her camera, the rescue by Dale, the lecture, the humiliation. She wrote about her vow to change her ways, to be more responsible, more aware, more respectful. She urged her followers to learn from her mistakes, to heed the warning signs, to think about the consequences of their actions. She ended her post with a heartfelt apology to Dale, to the other tourists at Inspiration Point, and to anyone who had been affected by her recklessness. She promised to use her platform to promote responsible tourism and to protect the natural world. She proofread the post several times, making sure that it was clear, concise, and sincere. Then, with a trembling finger, she clicked the post button. She closed her laptop and waited, bracing herself for the inevitable backlash. She expected a barrage of negative comments, accusations, and insults. She was prepared to be ridiculed, judged, and scorned. But something unexpected happened. The comments started pouring in, but they weren't negative. They were positive, supportive, and encouraging. People thanked her for her honesty, her courage, and her willingness to admit her mistakes. They shared their own stories of near misses on the trails, of moments of recklessness and arrogance, of lessons learned the hard way. They praised her for turning her negative experience into something positive, for using her platform to promote responsible tourism. Some people even apologized for the harsh comments they had left on her earlier photos. They said that they had been too quick to judge, that they had failed to see the humanity behind her mistakes. Karen was overwhelmed by the response. She had expected to be condemned, but she had been embraced. She had expected to be ridiculed, but she had been supported. She had expected to be scorned, but she had been praised. She realized that people are more forgiving than she had thought, that they are willing to give you a second chance if you are willing to own up to your mistakes and try to make amends. She spent the rest of the day responding to comments, answering questions, and sharing her story with others. She felt like she had finally found her purpose, her calling, her reason for being on social media. She was no longer just an Instagram influencer. She was an advocate for responsible tourism, a champion for the natural world, a voice for change. And it all started with a near fall off a cliff at Inspiration Point. News of Karen's transformation reached Dale a few weeks later. He was patrolling Inspiration Point, enjoying the crisp mountain air and the stunning views, when he received a call from his supervisor. Dale, his supervisor said, "I just wanted to commend you on your handling of that incident with the tourist a few weeks ago. The one who almost fell off the cliff." Dale smiled. pleased that his efforts had been recognized. "Thank you, sir," he said. "I was just doing my job." "Well, you did a great job," his supervisor said. "I just received a letter from the park's public relations department. Apparently, that tourist, Karen, has become a vocal advocate for responsible tourism. She's been sharing her story on social media, and it's had a real impact. We've seen a significant decrease in the number of people violating the safety barriers." Dale was surprised and delighted to hear the news. He had hoped that Karen would learn from her mistake, but he hadn't expected her to become such a passionate advocate for change. "That's great news, sir," he said. "I'm really glad to hear that." "Yeah," his supervisor said. "It just goes to show that even the most difficult people can be turned around. You really made a difference, Dale. Keep up the good work." Dale ended the call and smiled to himself. He felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that he had played a part in Karen's transformation. He had saved her life. He had given her a second chance, and she had seized that opportunity and turned it into something positive. He looked out at the breathtaking view from Inspiration Point, the jagged peaks, the emerald valleys, the endless expanse of sky. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a renewed commitment to protecting this beautiful place and the people who came to visit it. He knew that there would always be challenges, that there would always be people who ignored the rules and took unnecessary risks. But he also knew that there was always hope, that even the most stubborn hearts could be changed, that even the most reckless individuals could learn from their mistakes. He continued his patrol, his eyes scanning the crowd, looking for any signs of trouble. He saw families taking pictures, hikers admiring the view, teenagers laughing and joking. That he also saw a few people lingering near the safety barriers. Their eyes filled with temptation. He approached them, his voice calm but firm, and reminded them of the dangers of crossing the barriers. He told them about Karen's story, about her near fall, about her transformation. He urged them to be more responsible, more aware, more respectful. Most of them listened politely and moved away from the barriers, but a few of them scoffed and rolled their eyes. They didn't believe him. They thought he was exaggerating. They were convinced that they could handle the risks. Dale sighed, knowing that he couldn't reach everyone. But he refused to give up. That he would continue to patrol, to educate, to warn, to protect. He would continue to do his job, one day at a time, one person at a time. That he knew that he couldn't save everyone, but he could try. And that was all that mattered. That he was a park ranger, and he was proud of what he did. He was a guardian of the natural world, a protector of the people who came to visit it, and he wouldn't have it any other way. A year passed. Karen, true to her word, continued to use her social media platform to promote responsible tourism. She shared breathtaking photos of the park, but always from behind the safety barriers. She interviewed other park rangers, highlighting their dedication and the challenges they faced. She even organized a fundraising campaign to purchase new safety equipment for the park. Her transformation was remarkable. She had gone from being a self-absorbed Instagram influencer to a passionate advocate for the environment and a role model for responsible behavior. She had proven that even the most flawed individuals can change, can learn from their mistakes, and can make a positive impact on the world. One sunny afternoon, Karen returned to Inspiration Point. She approached Dale, who was on duty, and smiled warmly. "Hi, Dale," she said. "Do you remember me?" Dale grinned, recognizing her instantly. "Of course I remember you, Karen," he said. "How are you doing?" "I'm doing great," Karen said. "I just wanted to thank you again for saving my life, and for giving me a second chance." "You don't have to thank me," Dale said. "I was just doing my job." "No," Karen said, shaking her head. "You did more than just your job. You showed me compassion, you gave me hope, and you inspired me to change my ways. I'll never forget that." She paused, taking a deep breath. "I also wanted to show you something," she said, reaching into her backpack. She pulled out a small, framed photograph. It was a picture of Inspiration Point, taken from behind the safety barriers. The view was stunning, the light was perfect, and the composition was flawless. "I took this picture a few weeks ago," Karen said. "I wanted to show you that you can still capture the beauty of this place without putting yourself in danger." Dale took the photograph and examined it closely. He was impressed by Karen's skill and artistry. He could see the passion and dedication that she had poured into her work. "This is beautiful, Karen," he said. "You're a very talented photographer." "Thank you," Karen said. "But it's more than just a picture. It's a symbol of my transformation. It's a reminder of what I've learned. And it's a tribute to you, Dale." She handed Dale a small gift-wrapped box. "I wanted to give you something to show my appreciation," she said. "It's not much, but I hope you like it." Dale opened the box and found a brand new camera, a top-of-the-line model with all the latest features. He was stunned. "Karen," he said, "I can't accept this. It's too much." "Please, Dale," Karen said. "I want you to have it. You deserve it. You've done so much for me, and I want to do something for you." Dale hesitated for a moment, then smiled and accepted the gift. "Thank you, Karen," he said. "I really appreciate it." He knew that Karen's gift was more than just a camera. It was a symbol of her gratitude. Her respect and her admiration. It was a reminder of the power of compassion, the importance of second chances, and the transformative potential of human connection. As Karen walked away, Dale looked out at the breathtaking view from Inspiration Point. He felt a renewed sense of hope, a renewed commitment to his work, and a renewed appreciation for the beauty and fragility of the natural world. He knew that he had made a difference in Karen's life, and that she had made a difference in his. And that was all that mattered. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the valley, Dale stood at the overlook, his new camera slung around his neck. He watched as families gathered their belongings. Hikers consulted their maps, and teenagers posed for selfies. All safely behind the barriers, he thought about Karen, about her transformation, about the impact she had had on the park and its visitors. He realized that her story was a powerful reminder of the importance of respecting the rules, heeding the warnings, and recognizing the potential consequences of our actions. It was easy to become complacent, to assume that we know better, to believe that the rules don't apply to us. But the truth is, the rules are there for a reason. They are designed to protect us, to keep us safe, and to ensure that everyone can enjoy the beauty of the natural world without putting themselves or others in harm's way. Karen's story was also a reminder of the power of compassion, the importance of second chances, and the transformative potential of human connection. Dale had shown her kindness, he had given her hope, and he had inspired her to change her ways. And she, in turn, had inspired others to be more responsible, more aware, and more respectful. He looked out at the breathtaking view from Inspiration Point, the jagged peaks, the emerald valleys, the endless expanse of sky. He realized that this place was more than just a scenic overlook. It was a symbol of the beauty and fragility of the natural world, a reminder of the importance of preserving it for future generations. He raised his new camera and took a picture of the sunset, capturing the vibrant colors, the dramatic shadows, the sense of awe and wonder that this place inspired. He knew that this picture would be more than just a photograph. It would be a symbol of his own transformation, a reminder of the lessons he had learned, and a tribute to the woman who had changed his life. He smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude, a sense of purpose, and a sense of peace. He was a park ranger, and he was proud of what he did. He was a guardian of the natural world, a protector of the people who came to visit it, and he wouldn't have it any other way. The camera clicked, capturing the image for eternity. The sun dipped fully below the horizon, leaving behind a sky ablaze with color. And as darkness fell over Inspiration Point, Dale knew that the story of Karen, the tourist who had ignored every warning sign, would continue to be told, a reminder to all who visited this place of the importance of respect, responsibility, and the enduring power of the human spirit. The fence remained, a silent guardian, and the tourists, for now, stayed safely behind it, appreciating the view with a newfound sense of awareness. The end.